course, there is someone who might be behind the attack.
Cornelius, I implore you to see reason. Evidence that the Dark Lord has He stopped.
He's back. Heihachi is completely dead. But Harada, Harada, you might just be Japanese Jesus, bro. This dude sacrificed himself, seppuku, to quell the evil that is Tekken 8. No more 50-50. He abandoned Tekken, his passion project, his child, to arise from the ashes and ascend to SNK. Guys, a while ago when Harada left Bandai Namco, I made this video talking about what could be next for him, and in that video I talked about how I personally didn't think Harada was done with making games. To me it was very clear that over the years the guy was losing pull within the company, and his opinion clearly wasn't being heard over the voices of 20 inbred lizard people hissing at each other to add Kunamitsu and Lydia to Tekken 8 with even more mix-ups. Harada towards the end was basically just someone Bandai Namco used as a mascot of sorts to do backflips for the crowds, and he was the face of the development team despite not being a dev, and was basically just there for funsies, bro, I cannot lie. So he left. And at the time I said, the single funniest thing that Harada can do at this point in time is go and join the Virtua Fighter 6 team and make a better game than Tekken, because despite the rivalry between Tekken and Virtua Fighter, Harada is actually very good friends with the owner of Sega or whoever creates Virtua Fighter 6, whatever. So it wouldn't even have been surprising if he just went over there and just joined his boy. I said that that would be the most hilarious thing that could possibly happen in this scenario. And Harada has gone and done the second funniest thing imaginable and joined SNK, which is the company which makes King of Fighters and Fatal Fury, who is funded by Saudi trillionaires. Now, I think it's important to get the facts correct here. Michael Murray absolutely loves men, but not only that, Harada has joined SNK to create a new studio that is technically independent, so they're not technically a part of SNK, but the studio will be funded by SNK, so it technically comes under the umbrella of SNK. So think about how Game Freak and Nintendo work with each other. That's how I'm kind of making sense of this. I feel like this agreement that they have, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of described this way to make it clear that this new studio, despite being funded by a big ass company like SNK, has full creative freedom in making their games, which I think is the single most important thing that we need to take note of here. As I mentioned before, if we were to take Harada's communication with fans as truth on Twitter, he was clearly trying to make the game better and being shut down by his higher-ups. Harada, with creative freedom, has produced the single most iconic 3D fighting game of all time with Tekken 3. And the single best 3D fighting game of all time in Tekken 5 DR. There are games like Soul Calibur 2, there are games like Virtua Fighter 5. A madman like myself might even throw in Dead or Alive 4. However, Tekken 5 DR is objectively the best 3D fighting game of all time, and I am so firm on that, I won't even listen to someone who wants to seriously argue against that. Tekken 5 DR versus the next best fighting game is seriously Sasuke Aizen versus a schizophrenic stoner, bro. Even the dudes who say Tekken 3 is better, that game is peak, I won't argue that, but I would still call you crazy. Harada is a guy who, even when you look past Tekken 3 and 5DR, has still been a huge part of some of the biggest fighting games ever. Tekken 7 is a game that was created on no budget and is one of the best fighting games of all time. Tekken Tag 2, despite its lack of popularity, has the biggest cult following out of any of the games and is still regarded as one of the upper echelon fighting games of all time, despite its flaws. Tekken 6 is another game that is not as good as the games I've listed, but is still iconic in its own right. This guy has shown an ability to make peak games repeatedly, even when he isn't the main voice in the room, which makes it so exciting to hear when a guy like that goes and creates his own studio with the freedom to do whatever the fuck he wants, to an extent. I don't imagine this guy can just go and make hentai games, you know what I mean? But creative freedom, guys. He is still under the SNK umbrella, so I think it would be stupid to assume that there isn't some kind of expectations that need to be met. But when you look at a game like City of the Wolves, who currently has 244 players online on Steam right now, and is still a game with some of the biggest prize pools in tournaments, and is also a game with the most DLC characters being pumped out that I have ever seen, it is pretty clear that the goal with this company is just to make good games. and improve in the long run. So I doubt the monetary expectations that Tekken 8 clearly has won't be as much as a thing working for SNK, where they have infinite monetary support because they're owned by oil merchants. City of the Wolves, I don't even know how that game is still being supported. I can't even lie, bro. It has a strong tournament scene, but the casual fan base is literally non-existent. I literally cannot tell my friends I play City of the Wolves without being bullied, and the game gets 15 DLC characters a second. But anyways, I do want to say that Harada is technically the representative for this studio, which makes it sound like he's kind of just going to be doing the same kind of thing as he was for Bandai, but I heavily doubt that that is going to be the case, because I imagine this studio is just going to be significantly smaller, so it's going to be easier to throw around ideas and stuff so that you don't have to go through the entire Illuminati and Freemasons just to suggest that Nina shouldn't have 17 moves that just win the game on the spot, but also because some Bandai employees have actually followed Harada to this new studio. I imagine that these are the guys that are also sick of Bandai shit and just want to make a game where their passion isn't shut down because it doesn't make them immediate money, but it looks to me that there is some kind of, I don't want to say uprising because that's cringe, but let's say apparent disconnect between the employees of Bandai Namco and Bandai Namco. Honestly, the only thing I can see from this is positives, because Bandai Namco next to Nintendo is probably the single worst gaming publisher of all time. They have single-handedly ruined every single anime game from the past decade. The only game that has remained consistent are the Soul series, and I can bet my life on the fact that the only reason that those games are able to flourish the way that they do is because Bandai have next to no involvement with the development of that game, and the Souls games are literally just Bandai Namco by name and nothing else. Every single game that Bandai are able to get their hands on, they turn into a fast slop cash grab, and that's it. We can literally go to their site and see their games right now. Bleach Rebirth of Souls, stiff ass game, only created because 1000 Year Blood War is so big and they wanted to capitalize on the hype. Naruto x Boruto Storm Connections is literally Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 with extra characters, easy money slop cash grab. My Hero Ultra Rumble, probably the most obvious cash grab out of all Bandai games, literally costs you £200 for a guaranteed character on their gacha. Don't even get me started on these dogshit One Piece games. The more talent that leaves Bandai Namco, the better for the rest of us who actually just want to play good games without bad microtransactions being forced down our esophaguses. I also didn't say this, but those guys who left Bandai to go roll with Harada, W loyalty. You will reap the benefits, I promise you, boys. Well, not boys. These guys look like they have attended more Japanese Sunday barbecues where they're munching on eel sticks and teriyaki buns than I have had fun Tekken games. These are some geezers for real. But seriously, W geezers. I genuinely wish you guys infinite bread and heavy-chested MILFs. I don't really know what else to talk about as not much information has really been given, but I think that is a safe assumption to make that Harada still wants to make fighting games, right? Because even though Harada now has this independent studio, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to make fighting games. There is a possibility with every single Japanese game dev that they randomly just decide to go and make some random mech game for absolutely no reason. But I don't really think that's going to be the case. So the only thing I'm really left to think about is, what does a game that Harada makes look like when it's not named Tekken? Well, he's actually worked on a few things outside of Tekken, like Acecraft and Summer Lesson. I'm crying, bro. I'm crying, bro. Get this dude back on fighting games, man. What the hell is Summer Lesson, bro? What the hell is Summer Lesson, bro? Now, we gotta investigate this, fam. We gotta investigate.
くれたんだ。ありがとね。これ試験の結果が返ってきたの。本当？先生、ありがとう。
I don't imagine this guy can just go and make hentai games, you know what I mean? Bro, stick to Tekken, big dog. Stick to Tekken, man. Those are some meme games. However, Harada has actually worked on some actual games like the Soul series and Ni no Kuni. So it's kind of a mixed bag with this guy, I can't lie, but you know, just make fighting games for real. That's what we want from you, my guy. Please, I'm begging you. I keep saying The 3D fighter market is so free right now. It has been dominated by Tekken for so long. We need to have competition for this game. When a game has no rivals, there is nothing to encourage anyone to improve on anything, which is why their game is still so shit. If Harada is able to come into this market with Tekken or some shit and put Tekken on notice, the whole market succeeds. Imagine a time where the new Dead or Alive game is out, Virtua Fighter 6 is out, a new Tekken game is out, and whatever Harada makes is out, and we're still waiting for GTA 6. That is the golden ages, boys. But, you know, wishful thinking. I don't really know how other people have managed to make a 14-minute video out of this shit. I cannot lie. Harada has his own studio. W-mans, suck it. What's up?